Two other thoughts that al-Raghib al-Isfahani has on knowledge. One of them is to prioritize, right? If you're going to be well-rounded, you're not just going to over-specialize in one particular field. You still need to have a sense of sequence and a sense of priority. Some things come first, and we have in our tradition, we talk about the Salaf and how they approached knowledge. First things came first. You have the famous story of Imam Malik, his mother sort of wrapping his turban and sending him away, and she said the first thing that you benefit from is the manners, right? The etiquette of your sheikh. And that's extremely important. Again, another reminder that knowledge for us is ethical knowledge. Islam, in the whole Islamic paradigm, to have knowledge, that knowledge will only benefit if it's ethical. You can have all the information in the world, but if you are not going to be ethical with that knowledge and you're not going to have ethics and morals baked into your pursuit of knowledge, then it's a waste. You're going to actually end up in the fire. You're going to have a really damning case against you in the afterlife, like the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he says, who are some of the people who are the first to be put into hellfire? Who do you have, right? You don't have the criminal and the murderer and this. You have the person who's the phony scholar, right? The person who accumulated a lot of information, but they did so unethically. So that's the first thing, is to prioritize. So the first thing that comes, ethics, making sure that we get this down important. The Quran, obviously. If you don't know Arabic, that's there too. Many scholars, after they memorized the Quran, they would go on to actually mirath. They would go on to, because the Prophet ﷺ said that this would be the first knowledge to be taken away from the ummah. This is the knowledge of inheritance law and things like that. And then you have certain fields of knowledge that are keys that unlock others, right? So when you study, your studies of fiqh and your studies of tafsir and your studies of hadith will be never ending, right? Because it's inexhaustible to go over the Quran and to meditate on it. And fiqh, is almost inexhaustible. There's a lot of stuff there. And hadith, in the strict sense of the word, yes, they're finite. There's a finite amount of material, but it'll take a lifelong sort of relationship. But there's certain things that give you the tools to study other things, right? Such as usul al-fiqh, usul al-hadith, and these types of things. And we can make that same prioritization outside of Islamic fields. Like when you talk about, should I go and study the deen first, or where should I be with my Quran versus this other type of thing that I want to do? I want to get an MBA. I want to do this other sort of thing. Right? Prioritize. Some things come before others. And if you don't have the right priorities, then the things that you study first might actually end up harming you rather than helping you. The second point that al-Raghib al-Isfahani brings here and concludes with talking about knowledge is the importance of not letting our knowledge exceed our practice. And that is extremely difficult in today's world. And I am probably extremely guilty of this as well, is that we have the quest for quantity. We live in the reign of quantity, and we've abandoned the quality. We've abandoned the implementation. We've abandoned the transformation, right? We gather up knowledge. We have, how many hufad of the Quran do we have? And how many understand the Quran, right? That's an indictment against us, even though it's a good thing that we've preserved the Quran so well, alhamdulillah, but it is an indictment against us. It's not for us that we've produced this sort of thing where you have people who are basically just making sounds and they don't understand what they're reciting. And that goes for everything else, right? The companions, they would learn the Quran 10 verses at a time, and they would not move on until they implemented those 10 verses because they were afraid. That they had the ethical knowledge that they knew that if they knew something and didn't put it into practice, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would hold them to account, would ask them about that in the afterlife. We're so far from that. We're so far from that. We like to hoard knowledge and store up knowledge. And actually, al-Raghib al-Isfahani gives a powerful analogy for this. He said it's like somebody who collects weapons, somebody who collects ammo. They have a huge store. Imagine these days you got these preppers, you've got ammo and supplies or whatever, and in their whole lives they never fire a bullet, right? That's what we want to avoid when it comes to knowledge, storing up, and never putting it into practice, right? The knowledge becomes noble by its being embodied and it's being put into practice, and we ask Allah for success.